Yes. Hello.
I'm too shy to sit in front. I'll sit right directly behind you. I think glass will do it. Bad. I'm the only person in the front.
Hi.
Like, look at this. It's
Can you
okay.
hear me?
Yeah.
Can you hear me? People online?
Oh, I feel. Yeah. Almost. Yeah, that's been held, so it's been slowly progressing. I'm not really bad. Yeah, so. This is supposed to be.
Is this still alright? Yeah. We start? Yeah, I see a couple people, but I think we can start. Okay, so
Yeah.
thank you everyone for coming. Yay.
Yay.
And thank you people for joining online.
Sorry, I think you're muted.
Right,
You're muted.
I'm muting.
Yeah, you're muted.
Oh, I'm not muted.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So I think we are missing some people in the room, but I'll just start directly. And this is the talk, Cataloging Encounters with Atelier 17. Let me time myself. So to start the talk, I want to introduce myself by saying myself as an illustrator, a facilitator, a writer, and right now a printmaker. And the things I like are woodlands, giraffe, mint chocolate ice cream, beautiful hats and socks, and a printing press. As you can see in the right hand side, that's a printing press. So to introduce this project, this project actually began in Tate, Britain. It all starts with an unexpected invitation found within the Tate Archive from Atelier 17, a print and education collective active between 1927 and 1988 in Paris and New York. The invitation was uncanny, syncing with my own practice as a printmaker and my ambitions to develop as an educator. If you would like to know more, you can see reference and notes collection RN11. So please allow me to read out the overall text I've written for this project so it gives you more content of the work. Hi friends, this is Louise speaking. I'm as busy as usual these days, apart from my weekly educational part-time job. I spend lots of time researching Atelier 17. Imagine traveling back in time to being in a workshop which was going on in history for over 60 years. The idea of art education that I never thought it did exist. Sounds like a utopia. A chemist named Tate fell in love with etching, left England resolutely to Paris, became an artist. He opened his workshop for anyone who wanted to join, to learn, free to join. Imagine a place where I can meet people from different backgrounds. Imagine I'm chatting with Miro. Imagine I'm making suggestions for Picasso. Imagine working with different professions, then inventing a new technique collectively. Imagine the world outside doesn't allow women to shine, but in here we find value, we find courage, we found our rights. We know we are diamonds, just like others. Imagine 90 years ago, like one of the Asians, I traveled here all across the ocean. I'm scared of thinking the difficulties I face must be 100 times worse than what I can relate. Imagine 90 years after, the experiences I brought back from then have influenced the art history of my homeland. Imagine the darkness of war shroud Paris, but the crisis would not defeat us. In 1940, Hayter left Paris to New York, continuing the next chapter, the story of Atelier 17. After 10 years, Hayter moved back to Paris. Atelier 17 was operated until the year he died. So this is the content of the talk today. We have already finished the introduction, and we have 6 parts, including a conclusion for the talk. And in part 4, we have some special guests today joining us, so please be excited about it. Before I jump into chapter 1, I think it's important to read the quotes of this book, The Women of Atelier 17 by Christina Weil, and I'll have more description about this book later. It is important to remember, however, that many of these discoveries were the result of collective efforts, sometimes encompassing many smaller discoveries and setbacks, which together form the studio's overall technical legacy. Part 1, breathing in the first encounter. I hope the video has sound, but no, it doesn't. Oh. But it's okay. So this is a video of Stanley William Hayter demonstrating how to etch a plate by stencils. So I found this documentary on YouTube. It's a really old and low resolution documentary. So I have to guess what he was doing. And to repeat what he was doing, I have to talk with the technician in the print room, and we guessed together what he was doing because it was really unclear. So this process is like Hayter facilitating me for 6.5 hours to make this plate. And with the help with the technician in RCA print workshop in Battersea. Is the video showing all right? Yeah. And this plate is etched for 6.5 hours, and it's called open plate. Slacking. Oops. Yeah, so you can do, I think the video is playing a bit weird, but you can see it found online, and I have uploaded all this material in the RCA digital show website. So if you're interested, you can watch it in my personal page. So this project starts from the picture I shared earlier. It's an invitation card in Tate, and then it's been through different archival records that I can find online in the library and in different archival institutions. So So this book is actually a really important book for this process called The New Ways of Gravure by Stanley William Hayter. He written it in 1949 when he was running Atelier 17. And I first found this book in the Internet Archive, and I started learning the process he taught in his book, and I tried to visualize the text into print, and this leads me to further seeking out the other print educations, such as technicians and peers in the print room. And I think if you see on the right-hand side, there is a really important process for this work is I start writing down the notes directly onto the print I make right after I print it. So this brings the process like more focusing on the mistake and the success instead of the overall outcome. And yeah, so you can see this is the process of it. So I found the image reference from the book, The Women of Atelier 17. I learned about the women artists Christina Well mentions in the book, and then I tried to deconstruct how they make the prints. And then step by step, first try, second try, and I get more and more controllable. And after that, it's a print that I think I know how to do it, but sometimes this happens. Yeah, after 10 minutes of cleaning and inking the plate, it's still ripped, but I think I kind of like the process because I'm learning from it. Hello. So part 2 is called Reaching Out, telling the story. So I work at Princeton School of Art, Illustration, and Animation as a studio fellow, and I love to run workshops with the students there. And this year I tried to bring a lot of stories and skills and methods of Atelier 17 that I learned from these archival records, bring the narrative to the new generations of makers. During the research process, I have met with a lot of people. So I'm actually an introvert, but Atelier 17 story just let me want to talk to other people and share the story of it. And I learned about a British artist, Julian Trigonian, and brought the story of Atelier 17 even closer to my community, because I know that I learned that he graduated from Cambridge University in literature, but like Stanley William Hayter, he fell in love with print, and then he also went to Paris and joined Atelier 17. And after he came back from Paris, he started teaching in UAL, University of Arts, London. Yeah. And then after that, he actually taught in the Royal College of Art under the Department of Engraving, and engraving is under graphic design. So the school system kind of changed after I read these digital annual reports that provided by the RCA Digital Archive. And in the digital archive, I also found a photo of the old print room of Royal College of Arts in the 1950s, and have a comparison of the print room that I visit every year. I think I'm having like a constantly conversation with the history, which I think is really cool. And another little things that is not really referenced to the project but I found interesting is like in the year 1950s, there is Department of Stained Glass that doesn't even, I don't think in any university they have it now. Yeah. And with my Hajima, who is in the room today too, we also visit Tate Britain print and drawing room to have a view of the original prints of Hayter he made in Atelier 17, and also the prints of Julian Trigonian during the year he made in the Royal College of Arts. So it's the 1950s until 1960s. 19, not 19. So the third part is called situating. Each time I have a review with my tutor, I only got like less than 5 minutes to speak, so I'm struggling to talk through the process I've been through because it's quite a lot. And my feedback from my tutor, which made me a bit upset, is you need to work with a designer. And I was like, but I study visual communication design, and I still have to work with design, and that makes me sad. So why I'm studying this? But after like a couple of days, I started thinking, okay, how can I make my work communicate well? So this photo actually demonstrates how I organized my research journey through cataloging method I learned from Tate Archive. So I spread the work in a chronological order and started making tags for each of them. It's quite complicated, as you can see. A lot of tags are wasted because yeah. And this is the little outcome for the process is building a catalog for it. So how it works is every process I've been through, I have given it a reference number. And if you pick out the object and you want to know about it, just go to the catalog and it tells you in details and also what is related to this object. So it's kind of different from Tate because Tate Archive is written in a third person narrative. So it's really simple and it couldn't have any personal emotion in it. It's really descriptive. But my catalog, because it's my own journey, so I think the narrative I want to create is like I'm talking to you and I'm telling you all the details of the work. And this is where the work was situated for the first time. It's in the Tate Britain. And so the work are put on the table and people can just read through it and leave notes and tell me what they think. And part 4, these amazing women. So the book I've mentioned earlier, keep mentioning earlier, The Women of Atelier 17 is by Christina Well, published in 2019 by Yale University Press. So this book is not only a visual inspiration and reference for myself for this project, and also it makes me start being really curious about the missing narrative. So I think to start talking about this part needs to go into a little history about the women printmakers around that time. This is a museum. This is an exhibition of the DNA. It's shown recently, and it tells you printmaking at that time. It's seen as a secondary craft. It's for reproducing the fine artwork. But actually, this gives women an opportunity to join printmaking. So there is not as much restriction as fine arts. So they can actually show their work. They can join institution, and compared to fine art is more dominated by the male item, but in printmaking, female has a little space to shine. And what Christina Well reveals is how Atelier 17 facilitated women artists' engagement with the modern style, and how Atelier 17 fosters solidarity among women pursuing modernist form of expression, and also providing inspiration from feminist collective active in the 1960s and the 1970s. And think about it, now in art school, what I have experienced is female is always more than male. And I keep feeling really, really respectful for these women that fighting hard for shining at that time so we can have our education now. And Christina Well not only wrote a book on it, she actually done a whole PhD research just on the women of Atelier 17. And she built a website for it, finding out nearly 100 women's identities by archival research, by interviewing of their sisters, their daughters, their brothers, and her dad actually worked for her too. Her dad find out the gene connection to find their family roots, to find out the name for this artist who has already lost their name because of marriage or because of as a female who needs to marry, they have to give up their career. So a lot of these women are unknown. They can only find a small name on the catalog and without as much as description as a male artist. So in this website, she builds the biographies for this artist with their pictures and the work they have done before, which is really, really great. And before I start this part, I think I would like to introduce a curator who has joined us online, and Mine Nakajima, who has collaborated in this part of the project. I don't know, should I start screen sharing and let Haruka to speak? Are you there?
Hi. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, Haruka.
Yeah,
So-
thank you for inviting me.
Yeah. So in this project, Mine and I found Haruka to have a meeting with her to feeling the mental narrative of Ruku Izumi in the Western society. Haruka, would you like to introduce yourself?
Okay. I'm working in Machida City Museum Graphic Arts. It's in Tokyo, Japan. My museum is specialized in printmaking, and I'm the curator of that museum. And I held a exhibition about Ryuko Utsumi. That's why we collaborated together.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Thank you, Haruka-san. Okay, let me keep sharing my screen. I'm so happy that you can join from Japan. So Tristan Williams' book got me started interested in these women, especially Asian, because I saw in the documentary there's some Asian faces, but I don't know the name. So I went into the archival website of Atelier 17 and really looked through every name, and I found this name, Ruko Uzumi, which to me seems like an Asian name, a Korean. So I quickly messaged Mai and say, Mai, do you know this name? Is that a Japanese? And Mai said, yes, it is. But we couldn't find any information about her on Google UK. But after a while, Mai told me, she thinks the name was mistakenly spelled. It should be Ruku Izumi with a U instead of O. So we've been through a long process of finding out this female artist, and surprisingly noticed that she is 101 years old now and still alive. And again, we've been through a lot of time and looking for Haruka, because she was curating this the exhibition for Ryuko Izumi by the end of 2022, and luckily we can have an interview with her. So I'm gonna just summarize what I find really interesting in the interview. So the curator, I think this is my question. She asked the curator, what is your first impression of Ryuko? And the curator's first impression of Ryuko is a really peaceful lady living in a house with a big garden with her daughter, granddaughter, and many, many cats. She really loves cats, Haruka described. And Haruka said it's impressive that Ryuko's work is always changing, and most recently, she uses her daughter's photo as material for etching. But because of COVID, as an elderly person, she has not been outside for a long time, and this is a possible reason for stopping her from creating art. However, the curator believes Ryuko can and will start making art soon. So if you see on the right-hand side, Ryuko kindly took the photo of the exhibition to show all of us some of the works of the Ryuko made. And this is the most exciting part I've found within the whole story. Ryuko's journey in etching started from learning basic etching with her neighbor and using a Japanese squid machine for the etching press, as you can see on the right-hand side. I asked the curator, and she said that at that time, a lot of Japanese etching printmaking artists all use squid machine as their press. Do you know the machine that you roll the squid over and it becomes flat? And at that time, she already had a child when she went etching, and the curator wasn't sure how she managed to babysit, to teach. She was a teacher in middle school, and help her husband work. Her husband is a doctor and learn etching at the same time. And what Ruko mentioned about Atelier 17 was the roller there was so heavy and the press was hard to operate. For a small Asian woman like her, she worked so hard during her time in Atelier 17 that her jaw even dislocated. Yeah. And as a curator, what inspiration do you think Ruko's work can bring to the audience now is what I asked her. And she said, she's still alive, 101 years old and still living well and keep making art until her 100. And that is really impressive. She wants to bring, she went to Paris in her 50s, that is around 1970s, when she struggled to develop her expression. And this still sounds really amazing in 2022, said Haruka. And might add that a woman went to Paris in that age is still really rare in Japan until now. Yeah, and at that time she had a child, but her husband actually encouraged her to go to Paris, and I think that is such a sweet story. And after nearly 2 years in Atelier 17 Paris, Ruko returned to Japan. And she also opened her own print studio, which is called Print 80 Workshop. And she not only shared what she learned from Atelier 17, but also improved the tools she used in Atelier 17 and making them smaller and lighter to handle so her jaw won't disconnect anymore. And in the right-hand side, it's what Haruka showed me during the interview. This was a farewell party Print 80's member held at the year of 1991, and this was photos from Ruko's photo album during the interview. So in the right-hand side, you can see this is the print Ruko made in Atelier 17 in 1972. So it's kind of, you can really see the style that's being influenced by Atelier 17 and Stanley William Pater. And part 5 is about finding the position. So my statement as an illustrator and a practitioner is I'm interested in how sustainable and affordable printmaking can be a method of engagement, the process of collective learning, and the stimulation of environmental actions. But the process wasn't really about that, because what Atelier 17 invented as a technique is using oil-based ink and mixing in different proportion of oil so it can separate in one print. So what they invented is when you want, normally if you want to print etching in full color, you have to make several etching plates. But what Stanley and William Pater and the Atelier invented is you can actually use one plate to print multiple colors. So how do I make it more sustainable and more affordable for everyone? These are what I try out. It's a 3D printed open press. We're reusing the found plates that others no longer wanted. We're just trying to find an alternative non-toxic printmaking inks that is cheaper, more sustainable compared to traditional oil-based ink, but that still have the same effect of the traditional ink. So it's to make the techniques, the facilitation, the facilities and material more accessible and the cost more affordable, because myself as a potential educator, facilitator, and at the same time as a student, and I know how hard it is to live in London as an art student when the rents, all the fuel fee, the water bills, everything, it's crazily high. So how can printmaking still be accessible for everyone? And also how it can fit into the contemporary framework of education for sustainable development. And so what I respond to is earlier, the workshop I mentioned before is actually referenced on one of the chapter in the new ways of gravure, printing on fabric, but I replaced the plate to Tetra Pak, which is a recycled material like when you drink soda beans, when you drink milk, and printing that on fabric. It's also embracing the idea of intaglio printing, simultaneous color printing, and also printing on fabric, as Tate mentioned in the book. And the Open Press project, it's a free open resource. People can just download and 3D print themselves and make a press. So another thing I've done at Kingston School of Art is to change my Wednesday design workshop to everyone's print club. And this is actually originally run by Rachel Lilly, but because COVID kind of stopped, and now we rerun it. So print club is fit for everyone. You can come bring your idea and we test it out and run a workshop together. And this is the print club last Monday. So I introduced a little bit story of Atelier 17, and we focus on another thing here on his book is printing on fabric, printing on plasters, which is really cool. And some idea I think that can be adopted into the plate making, which I found in VNA's exhibition. And part 6, the contemporary frameworks. So I'm not just interested in printmaking, I'm interested in education, higher education in general, and also more like psychological, educational psychological knowledge. And I read this on an interview by a Australian Taiwanese golf professional player called Jane Missingham. She said that if you care so much about winning and losing, you will feel very painful. Because in golf, does anyone know golf? You can see on the right hand side, it's kind of really a traditional game that originates from China many like ancient years. Because after, no matter you win the game or you lose the game, at the end of the game, both players needs to repeat their move to show the mistake they have made, which is called goal review. And I think it's different from a simply review. It's like, okay, let's see what mistake you have made. Because even if you win, you need to know how you win. You lose, you need to know how you lose. And then next time, you know how to become better. And I think this really connects to my project. That's why I put this in. This is a screenshot from the really bad documentary I saw on YouTube. And this, I didn't know what's happened in the image. It seems like Hater is having some talk to the students with his print. But after I watched this talk by Anne Shelfer, oh, it is actually the first workshop Hater run for every participant. So he wants to make sure you know the process of etching before you can just freely use his material. So this process, you went from unsure to you are proud to print. And I think this kind of archiving journey kind of relates to my project too. And just to give a little introduction about Anne Shelfer, she is a curator and also a researcher on Atelier 17. What is cool about her is she actually visits Paris and visits Haters with Willow, the series. And they found a lot of plates that haven't been printed and made in Atelier 17, and they print those plates out. And I also saw a lot of original works from Hater. And just a little bit gossip, which is not really relevant to this talk, is that in Tate Archive, I noticed that this Hater's marriage certificate and divorce certificate with his second wife, Helen Phillips. And then this photo when Hater was kind of old, but was in love with his, also a student in Atelier 17, and turned out to be his third wife and his widow that Anne Shelfer visits. Yeah. It's quite shocking that he had 3 wives. I thought 2. And last night I thought, she has 3. Yes. And so to give a little fun summary, when my statement as an artist means Atelier 17 team, I aim to intertwine both to make the process greener and more in line with the sustainability principles that the citizens of the new century today should follow to make the process greener and more accessible and more affordable. Looking back at the previous printmaking workshop experience, I often encounter participants who are not satisfied with their finished work and lost their confidence, or were even afraid to show their work. Through Atelier 17, we can demonstrate the meaning of the workshop to encourage participants to embrace the encounters of the unknown and experimentation to see each attempt as a source of growth. So this reminds me in Darcy print room. They are full of print students because where printmaking students are based. And a guy, he bring in 5 prints, which looks slightly different, and he shows the technician say, I don't like this, I don't like this, I don't like that. And he was quite frustrated why after 5 times he still couldn't get the result he wants. And the technician said, oh, it's all about the process. And I think the technician said a sentence that really was in my brain till now, even though I don't know why. She told her, blue is the color that shows the most mistake because he used blue. And I couldn't cut in and ask why it's blue because I was like listening on the side. But I think this word is such philosophical after you think about it. Yeah. And just like Atelier 17, it doesn't matter whether you are an experienced printmaker or not. There is no hierarchy. We embrace encounters with prints and others. And I aim to bring the inspiration of Atelier 17, both technical and philosophical aspects, and the immense room of imagination and interpretation of this archive to a wider audience. And that's why for the final little outcome for the workshop, I decided to do a talk because finally I have chance to talk through the whole process instead of being limited in 5 minutes. And yeah, so my tutor suggested that sometimes not every work is suitable for display, and maybe your work is like that. So why not do a talk? So I developed this talk. And another thing I'm really curious about is how to use our unique language to record the learning process to create our own learning archive catalog. And the last thing is the process was found to be compatible with the psychologist Carol Dweck's I'm not sure if I pronounced it right, but the research into growth mindset. And this kind of mindset is not limited to educational settings. So I mentioned I really like to listen to psychological podcasts, and I heard about this term and a little bit description about what is growth mindset. Is actually you view everything as a growth, and you archive everything. Based on the mistake you made, you become better next time. And this is actually fits into this kind of mindset. And a conclusion. So again, the podcast, I learned about actually the way I learn might be suitable for someone else. It's called the Feynman technique. Is I choose a concept to learn. So I accidentally bump into an invitation card in Tate Archive, and I choose, I want to learn about it. And I teach it to myself or to someone else. So I teach it myself through the archival records in the print room. And I also told others because people will come in curious what I'm making because the image doesn't look good, but the process looks fun. So I will chat with them the process. And I return to the source material if I get stuck. So the documentary I mentioned, I think I watched it over 10 times, 20 times, keep watching it to figure out how did he do it. And then I simplify my explanations and create analogies. So I create workshop for students, create workshop for all of you. But I think it's not simplify my explanation. It's actually a more comprehensive narrative for the explanations and also create analogies, yes, to make it more communicated to people and make you can learn about my idea in a short time. So this workshop is then developed into a this talk is then developed into a workshop, which some of you will join later. It's called Archiving, Encounters with Simultaneous Cover Print. So it included the points I have mentioned in the conclusion, including learning about ideology, learning about skills and technique they use in Atelier 17, and also archiving. By the end of the workshop, everyone is invited to just write down the journey of the print process. And it's nothing about the outcome, it's always about the process. So to sum up the project, the work Cataloging Encounters with Atelier 17, it's a work that ongoingly archives the journey from teaching myself to print processes contained in the archival records from Atelier 17, to reflect on the current crisis that the new generations of makers are facing through the lens of its history. Situated as the extension of Tate Archive, part of the work collaborates with Japanese artists Maya Nakajima and researchers Haruka Machimura to fill the gap of the missing narrative of Atelier 17 in Western society. And in terms of communication, it investigates different ways of archiving the learning journey to become part of the growth. So the future plan or ideas for this project is to unlocking more stories. I believe there are more stories that I can unlock, including finding out maybe more Asians female in the catalog, in the records, because that is what related to me as an Asian who studies here as a international student. And also find a way to really document and publish the journey. It can be a website, though I have no idea how to do it. It can be a publication. And what I want to do is just make it an open source for everyone, just like Christina Well built a website for the 100 Women, and Atelier 17 is open freely for everyone. And I want to say a huge thank you to all of you, and also peers from Archiver, my friends from Royal College of Art, a student from Kingston School of Art, Laura, Rachel, Nick from Kingston School of Art, Richard, Debbie, Tracy, Pierre, and Joel as tutors, my mom, Millie, and Guy who joined online, Haruka and Mai, and Pierre in the people in the fantasy print room, and also people in the 3D making workshop in Madison. Thank you. I hope you enjoy your talk. We'll have oh, click one. Okay, so I think we have 10 minutes before the end of this talk to just browse through the catalog, the work, some part of the selection of my work there. Or if you have anything you want to chat with me, welcome. Yeah, I'll bring the camera there so I can show people online. Welcome to open your mic.
这是我的破衣服，就是每次干脏活的时候，不是碰石灰就是light blue。石灰的都自然。
I'll move the camera here.
还有别人？
没关系。
我不想人。Yeah, of course. Yeah, so what time does the workshop start? You help Louise. I love you reading that. Yeah, I was like, oh. And they were like, oh, it's 100 years old. So good.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
Yeah, because at the beginning I didn't know what it was. Yeah, I know. Like when you did the workshop, you really explained it.
I managed to time well.
Yes, like perfect.
So if you want to see the work, I can upload a link.
不是，哦，字是什么
Not the shape, but just the rolling pin, the Chinese one. Oh, it's a lot of 你的书是什么？请来看无力的植物。看那个树是呀，是的，
I just like go with
反而和你用的那个画世界不一样，那个 soft 的就是你可以直接往上放叶子都可以，这个画写到哪都可以。这个应该就是这个画儿，就是这种植物老可能。这个 soft 你印出没有，你刻出来之后，那个你们那画是我们画实际的。
video that couldn't play smoothly today, and also the catalog.
就是说，你只是好像是和你要覆盖的那个世界。如果你想是大面积，你要把那个其实和那个丝网印刷那个概念有一点点相似，国内挺麻烦的。那个华人世界，反正他们也不让自己弄。
你出来了，
是把它洗出
我也是这样。No, she was taking a picture of you. She's posing. She just posed. Oh. Hold on.
Have any question you can ask? Some pieces are in the display desk.
Oh, where is another one?
Yeah.
Louise, do you think you're gonna do? I feel like
you already finished. Oh my! That's so good. Interdisciplinary. Yeah. I submit about 4 seconds before the deadline.
The English is stuff, like, and then he said he needed this part, and I tried to like, yeah.
Is anyone still alive? So they can see this.
This is so cute. What is this called?
It's called
Your barns are so cute,
but small.
It's 3D printed.
Oh,
This is one that anyone can print, right?
Yeah.
it covers it themselves.
Well,
That's so great. That's like
Yeah.
this red is so bad.
You know those like play exhibitions.
But the thing is, my team see the video doesn't look good. Like,
No, but like it's like the process that matters. It's not like you said. It's not the outcome.
especially when you compare
Narrative that you.
and they got me.
At least in those like exhibitions where you have like come.
We're not in the same way. And there's how they mix this. They mix this up.
It's still there. Yeah, it's how can I see?
Because I always got class on Wednesday.
Yeah. Haruka. Oh, Haruka. Haruka-san. Haruka-san. Hi, Mom. Haruka-san. Haruka-san. How are you?
Yeah, it was so interesting. Your presentation was very interesting
Oh,
to hear.
thank you. I hope Ruku can listen.
Yeah. Is it I saw your website from your link you share now.
Yeah.
There's a is it okay if I send to Ryuko and I print it out and
Yeah. But the website didn't include the transcript of our interview. It's only the photo you sent me, and yeah.
Yeah, I think it's I think she will be happy to hear that you made a presentation about Ryuko, about her.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get a New Year card from Ryuko this year in January. She looks fine. So
Now everyone knows. Yeah, now everyone knows.
so I will send your presentation from. Is it okay? I'll send your presentation.
Yeah.
To Ryuko. Okay.
Thank you, Haruka.
Are you going to hold the workshop?
Yeah, there's a workshop start 20 minutes after this. Yeah, and that is like pre-making workshop.
For it was etching or
because we don't have the press, so it's more like relief and mono. Yeah. But with the stencil that I found in Atelier, they use a lot stencil, like cut out shape. Yeah.
what sounds now?
Oh. Like of that. I'll send you the photos of the workshop.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, so I think I will stop the Zoom now, and I'll send more pictures of the workshop. Thank you for joining. Bye.
Applying either at the job or like I'm applying at full-time job as well. In the arts. Yeah. It's like a sound system and like public thing, like a public publishing industry.